Well, hello everyone. A blessed Sunday evening to you. I hope that everyone watching either live or on the replay has had a wonderful Sunday. It is Sunday for me, it's the Lord's Day, and I did my usual quiet things and just spent time in God's presence. And today I am coming back to chat with you on our topic. Before we go any further, if you are new to me, my name is Tabitha Liebert, and I am a conflict management strategist. And I help leaders of diverse teams manage conflict so that they can close the gaps between issues and outcomes and create a peaceful, productive, and profitable workplace. Because there's so many studies that have shown that conflict in the workplace is going to affect the people there, it's going to affect the work there, and it's also going to affect, of course, your revenue and what you're able to do. Now, I'm coming live every Sunday to talk about conflict resolution tips because May is in the middle of Q2 for the year. And for some, it can be a little bit challenging. Depending on where you live, the seasons might be changing. And wherever we are, life has a certain hustle and bustle that brings with it sometimes just stress that will affect how we manage conflict and how we react to conflict. And so, to help you to manage conflict that arises in both your personal and professional lives, I have called this Momentum May, and I am going live every evening in May to bring a conflict resolution tip for you. And so, wherever you're watching from, say hi and let me know your thoughts on this as we go along. All right, so today's topic is set your gear to neutral. That is our tip for today. Now, when we say setting your gear to neutral, it means approaching anything that's happening, whatever issue you're approaching. The advice for today is to try to approach it in a neutral way. When you are in neutral, when you put on your neutral thinking cap, you're more impartial. And being neutral prevents biases and it helps all parties to be treated fairly. It fosters trust and cooperation and it helps you, whichever group you're working in, to open up communication so that you approach things with a neutral stance, and that encourages open dialogue, that helps people to express their grievances, and it encourages collaborative work. And what that does is moves you towards a mutually beneficial arrangement. Collaborative work is going to help you move to a more beneficial resolution of issues. And that, of course, is going to make relationships in the workplace better and make communication more effective. Now, when you can be neutral, when you can approach issues or conflict from a neutral standpoint, it helps you to avoid entrenchment. And what entrenchment is when you get stuck in a position, if you are very dogmatic about the way you're thinking, if you are quite certain of something and you've already made up your mind, you are more likely to be entrenched in a certain position when there's conflict. And that is not the best way to approach any issue, especially a conflict issue. The danger of entrenchment, which is getting stuck in a position during conflict, is that often we lose sight of solutions. So, because you've already made up your mind, because you've come into the conflict with a preconceived notion, right? She doesn't like me, or I know he's stealing, or I know he has another job somewhere else. He's not working here alone, or I just know they were talking about me. And sometimes we use other emotions to back up the position that we have taken. Sometimes we lean in and we say, I have a gut feeling that that is so. I absolutely know that this is what's happening. My gut tells me so. Sometimes we got to check our gut so that our gut doesn't get us entrenched. Yes? An example of this can be where there's a disagreement, and because of entrenched positions, that disagreement escalates and escalates and escalates because no one is willing to compromise. And so, the encouragement for this tip is to think about how you can practice an open mind and how you can approach conflict in an open minded way. So, when there is the temptation to come into conflict with a fixed mindset, the encouragement is to look at all the options that are available and think about those options even before you start the discussion, even before you engage. And tell yourself, well, hey, if I can think of six options, who knows which one it is, or who knows if it is one of these or a combination of them all. And so the invitation here is for you to approach any conflict from a neutral standpoint, whatever the issue is. Be neutral. Flow into that issue with an open mindset, having thought about the issues, and then asking curious questions. Asking questions that will elicit answers that will give you more information so that you can come away with enough information to make a more uh, to make a better decision about the conflict, a more informed decision about the conflict. Yes? Because what happens when you can be neutral in approaching conflict is that it enhances perspective taking. So, coming into an issue by maybe putting your emotions in the parking lot and coming in with an open mind, it makes you become more aware of what all the issues could be. And by doing that, it helps you to approach the conflict head on. Now, what you can do to help you maintain neutrality is to become aware of your emotional thermometer. And what this looks like is monitoring your feelings so that you prevent emotional outbursts, so that you stop getting ahead of yourself and you spend more time listening and hearing and understanding. Imagine being someone who can recognize when there is some sort of defensiveness and take a step back to reflect instead of pushing back at the person. And when we are looking at this tip and trying to get this one into our tool belt, the invitation is for you to identify personal signs of defensiveness in yourself and develop strategies to maintain them because we're human. Yes. And if we are feeling attacked or triggered, the human reaction is to put up our defenses. And so the invitation is, like we talked about earlier this week, last week, identify your trigger points, identify the personal signs of defensiveness. So if you are someone who does not like to be called a liar, walk into that situation considering, okay, if there is an issue about who is telling the truth, I'm not going to take it personally. I'm just going to say my piece and I'm going to explain myself. I am not going to assume that someone is calling me a liar, right? Look at our personal signs of defensiveness and develop strategies in advance to manage them. It's really important to discuss issues until the problem is identified and understood. And sometimes it takes a while, but there is nothing like investing time to help resolve conflict. And so when you start discussing issues until you can identify the problem and until you can understand that problem, it's going to help you tunnel under closer to the root cause. And so you avoid being swept away by emotions. And if you feel that tide of emotion coming, do your best to stem the tide. so that you lean into the discussion and you are able, because you are asking questions and because you're still gathering information, you maintain a neutral mindset. And so the invitation for you to get this tool under your tool belt is to commit to engaging in open and honest discussions during conflict. The thing that we absolutely want to do is to avoid making assumptions about people's motives. Try not to assume that the other person has impure motives or that they mean harm, either to you or to anyone else. If you're in a workplace, start having discussions with your team. And if you're at home and you're talking with your family, start having discussions with your family. And here's what you do: talk about what it would look like if you had a culture where we agree to assume best intentions. So that if something happens, I'm not going to immediately start looking for all the reasons why this person meant to do this. Instead, I am going to assume that they had best intentions. I'm going to start discussing with them and trying to understand what happened and find common ground instead of moving ahead with the assumption that the person had impure motives or motives that were dishonorable or motives that were not kind. If you can do this, it's going to help you discover shared goals or shared values during a conversation. And it's going to help you to approach conflicts with curiosity, a curious mindset that leads you to ask questions and have the intent to understand the other person's perspective. When you do that, you're closer to them trusting you and you're closer to getting to the root cause of conflict. So, today we're talking about setting your gear to neutral. And if it's the one thing that I want you to take away from today's live stream, is the encouragement for personal reflection. Setting your gear to neutral allows you to step back from a situation that can be emotionally charged, right? And it's going to help you to get an objective assessment of the conflict. It's going to promote thoughtful responses to effectively resolve an issue instead of barreling into that conversation, already having taken a position, already having made a decision, already having assumed that you know what the other person's motive is. And so the encouragement is for you to practice maintaining balance, practice gaining perspective, asking those questions that will help you gain perspective and avoiding assumptions in our daily lives and our relationships. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's chat. And if you're if you're leading a team and you're looking to enhance your conflict management skills and you want a chance to use these tips, I want to invite you to register for our upcoming conflict management workshop. It is going to be amazing. I've already started planning it with my team, and there is so much good stuff involved. So much good stuff. And so there is a link in the caption above, and that gives you the opportunity to see the details and then register for free. Although this could be a paid workshop, it is not. And it's going to be an opportunity for you to use this information with your team. Ways that you can use this information are doing things like inviting your team to join the workshop with you and doing the homework together, or you yourself coming to the workshop. And once you've come to the workshop and you have gathered the information, you go back and you drip to your team, you share and you invite open discussions to build that cohesive workplace environment that leads you to rest and profitable revenue. Thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you can set your gear to neutral. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night.